MetaMask. All right, it is that time once again, Wednesday night, PGA Live Before Lock from Awesemo.com, the Charles Schwab Challenge. Why not? I am Ben Rasa. That is Eric Lindquist. We are ready to go, chat. It's not a major, but you know what? There's still a lot of money up for grabs in the DFS world, and that is what we are here to talk about. Phil is the champ. Eric, what is there left to say?
I don't know. Just, you should all chase Phil Mickelson again. Just play him 100% this week. Yeah. What in the world? Why is he playing this week? Isn't he a bazillionaire who could just take a nap? I'm very confused why he decided. I guess it's maybe what we do is like normie golfers, where the only thing that you want to do after you've played really good golf is play more good golf. So maybe he wants to just keep banking on this form.
Yeah, I mean, there's no explanation for a lot of things that have been happening. Crazy stuff.
You had another great week, I can tell.
No, it wasn't even that bad because Phil, okay. I mean, let's be real. Logically, he didn't make a lot of sense. I had a lot of Louis. I had a lot of Casey. Brooks was my biggest problem, and he wasn't popular either. It was just not having either capped it. But other than that, it was fine, to be honest. So we move on, and this is a tournament I actually really like. I'm a big fan of Colonial, and we've got some things. We'll go, waves, weather, withdraws. Not a ton of withdraws. Louis took mercy on us. He pieced out immediately. He was like, I'm not playing. I'm glad he did that. It's a smaller field. That's the first topic I want to get to with you. So we've been doing these 155, 156 to 65. It's really difficult. This is like a 120-man field. Does that alter anything that you do? Or you just say, you know what, it's just slightly easier to get 6 of 6.
Yeah, it's slightly easier to get 6 of 6. And I think it's, I would say slightly harder maybe to get up to a guy like Jordan Spieth, to get up to like Justin, because there aren't as many options to be going to the 6K barrel as you might have on a normal field. But for the most part, it's, balanced has been winning the day of late. And I guess maybe balanced we shall continue to do.
Yeah, it's true. Balance builds. I mean, because these fields are so deep, the winners are coming from not the top. And when that happens, you tend to, optimally, you didn't want to pay 11K for like a T9, but we'll see. It's not the end all be all, obviously. The other thing we were back to Texas this week. Not a ton of wind. It's always somewhat windy in Texas and whatnot, but I don't see anything with major wind splits per se. Do you?
Yeah, it looks like it's just kind of constant. If we're looking at the same thing, a friend of yours, he brought up the zoo that's nearby to Colonial, which there's a zoo that's like right next to Colonial, apparently. So there's a weather map that I'm kind of looking at from there. There's a wind tower, from there. It looks as though it's going to be pretty constant throughout Thursday, kind of between 10 and 11 throughout the day. There's no real big advantage. Looks like it might be a little blusterier in the afternoon, but that's not a shock to anybody. That's kind of how it works out. Storms possibly there on Friday, and looks pretty mild throughout. So we're still a ways from Friday, but looking at the Thursday, it doesn't look like there's a huge draw advantage.
Yeah, listen, I think you're well said. It doesn't mean there won't be splits, but I don't see anything that's, we got to plan for it. We've got to overhaul our player pool, things of that nature. The one thing I wanted to ask you before we dive into the players, it seems like Texas lately, particularly where this course has gotten a lot of rain, and there's a chance that it's lift clean in place. As a golfer, the emphasis on that, I assume, would be keeping it in the fairways. I mean, do you put more of a premium on accuracy if that's the case, or is the lack of run out, does that hurt the short hitters?
Well, we'll get to that in my hot take segment. I've got something pretty wild to throw out there, and I've been trying to find a book for it. Maybe you can help me find something, or maybe we can post some action on what I have for a hot take. But lift clean in place, I think there's going to be a lot more birdies made than what most people have this entire week. I keep watching and hearing things. I got to tune into a couple more shows than I normally do. Just now that the NBA only has a couple games going on, less that I have to really break down in the moment of it. But when you get rain like this, it makes golf so much easier, because when you're able to just plot around a golf course and kind of pick and choose your targets, a guy like Colin Morikawa, a guy like Justin Thomas, these great iron players, they're going to go out and they're going to have their way with this golf course. It's not long. You have a couple demanding par fours, par 70, but only 2 par fives, which might moderate, make some of the base scoring there. But I think it's going to be one of the lower iterations. Last year, we saw it play pretty firm and fast. It will be the opposite this time around. And I think there's going to be a ton more birdies made than most anybody else has said this week.
Interesting. So on that note, I assume you'll be looking more at like birdie or better percentage than you normally would at Colonial?
Yes, that's kind of where I'm drawing at. Like, if it's not somebody that can get the putter rolling, and somebody that's going to just be hitting irons and possibly get it going. There's a guy that in JT Boston that was popping up so ridiculously in my model. I know you want to bash my head in, and I'm going to be having to tone myself down a little bit on him, because from an iron perspective, like, he's just not a guy that is going to be able to just flag it constantly. And you just need to have guys who make a ton of birdies this week. I think that might be a little bit of the edge to be had here. It's not going to be your typical Colonial golf course, I don't think. Just if it's going to be so wet, and it's something that people have brought up constantly throughout the week, I think it just is going to play easier. It's going to be much, much easier to hold the greens in spots, and it's going to be easier to just put up a number. So a guy like Spieth, a guy like Justin Thomas, like, I do want to try to get to the top end where I can, but really just trying to group by birdies made and have an absolute blast with building this week.
Yeah. Listen, I think that's some of the topics we're about to touch too, because let's go to the course. Let's go to Colonial. But before I do, I want to talk a little about our friends who've been sponsoring the show all year, Monkey Knife Fight. We appreciate them. And if you haven't been over there, it's a different type of site, not as much of the time commitment that the other DFS sites require, and their player prop-based contests, they're super easy to play. It's not just the PGA, the NBA, UFC, esports, soccer. Of course, they will have football, just coming fast and furious. All you got to do, go over there, you choose your contest type, buy-in level, all the things that you're used to. And they have a big deposit bonus when you sign up. Use the promo code Awesemo up to $100. And this is new. Tomorrow, they've got a free roll for everyone. All it is, it's a complete free roll. And if you get it right, you get $15 in your account. All you have to do is correctly select whether Jimmy Butler gets more than his 23.5 points listed, and if Giannis gets more or less than his 27.5 listed point total. They're both going over. That game's going to be wild tomorrow. Can't wait. If you correctly pick both, you get $15. That simple, 100% free. So head over to monkeyknifefight.com. Make your selections. But we go to Colonial. You've talked a little about the course. Do you think it's going to play easy? I want to ask you kind of about, this is a par 70. So you only have 2 par 5s. They are not the most eagleable. It's more of a 3-shot hole for a lot of these guys. What do you make of the course? I know you've mentioned that you think it's going to play easier. Does anything else stand out when you see this venue?
So as you said, 548 yards, that first hole right off the bat, easiest hole in the golf course. Second hole, the second easiest hole in the golf course. And then you have kind of an easy finish to the 17th and 18th, both played underneath for an average score underneath 4. So kind of like, if you can get through 3 through 5 is kind of the stretch on this golf course that's really, really difficult. So you get off there a pretty easy start, and then it gets pretty abrupt quickly. But as I said, like, if it's going to be wet out there, playing a 216-yard par 3, a 465-yard par 4, some people might think, oh, well, now it's an advantage to hit it further because the ball won't be rolling out. I'm telling you, that's not really the case. It becomes target golf. It becomes so much easier for these guys who are hitting irons in that they don't have to worry about, if they're hitting a 4 or a 3 iron into these holes, that they have to worry about the run out or where the bounces are going to go. It just takes the shot distribution. It takes a lot of like the patterns away, because you're just able to flight it and know that it's going to stop generally next to the number that you're playing it at.
Yeah, I mean, if these guys are flag hunting, there's no doubt you're going to see streaks, bonuses, and under 70 bonus is one of the things, when it's par 72, you don't see that nearly as much. When it's par 70, even if the course is somewhat difficult, it's not that hard to just be under par all 4 rounds. So in terms of kind of crafting your teams, though, I mean, do you look to pure ball strikers? Are you going to look around the green, putters, drivers of the ball? I mean, do you correlate at a course like this, or a little of everything?
A little bit of everything. I mean, we've seen multiple types of winners here. I believe Phil's a past winner. I believe, you're looking at Daniel Berger here. I mean, all around golf games are going to kind of get it done around here. And as I said, I'm going to be kind of waiting guys who make a lot more birdies. Ball strikers, you love iron players on this golf course because you're just going to be hitting more of them with the number of par fours there are. As I'm pulling this up, you've got a number of them between, I believe somebody also said in chat, between 400 and 450 yards. You have a number of those type par fours that exist on this golf course. Number 11, as you said, not eagleable because it's generally playing around 600 yards. So yeah, great iron players. I think I'm going to be waiting just a little bit more here, but all around golf games are going to kind of get it done. And yeah, that's kind of the easiest way of putting it. Not that should be too much of a shock.
Yeah, listen, we've seen this course a lot. I don't think there's a ton to talk about. You can I think there's different ways to go about it. Tony Finau's been somewhat vocal that he doesn't plan to he's going to be aggressive off the tee, and you can do that now. It's tree lined. You can get yourself in trouble, but it's never going to be bad to have a short iron or a wedge in your hand if you can keep it in play. So let's go to the top. You've mentioned Spieth, you've got JT, you've got Morikawa. Well, there's some names. I mean, it's not a major, but there's still big time players here. So I'll just open it up. Where are you first drawn to, and how high are you starting these lineups?
I'm starting Justin Thomas. He's my highest owned golfer of the week. Shocker for everybody who's been tuning in. It's going to turn around for him. I just have to be invested at this point. It's almost like maybe I should just double my exposure every week, because when he eventually wins, which is going to happen sooner rather than later, getting him right now at his current ownership, just right around the exact same ballpark as Spieth, sitting in those low tens. Like I really like getting to Justin Thomas. The putter is going to flip, and when the putter flips, it's going to be over for everybody involved. I got to say also, it's very shocking to see Jordan Spieth not putting that well as of the last couple of weeks. So I find that to be an interesting anecdote, but this golf course is just ridiculous for him. 8 appearances, never finished worse than tied for 32nd, has a win, has 2 seconds. Like everything really matches up for him there. I just always try to take a little bit of a lighter approach, and, maybe in one of these birdie fests where everybody can kind of do what he's been doing, where he got really hot with the irons there for a run. Maybe I just go lighter there on the top end, because we have seen so many balance builds work out. But Justin Thomas has been and will always be kind of my priority. If you just talk about any kind of long-term form, he's jumping to the top of the page with amongst everybody else.
I'm with you. If I could pick a guy north of 10K, it would be JT. I think he's just the best player overall, coming off a missed cut, which doesn't really matter with a guy like that. And he actually flipped the putter last week. That's not why he got cut, which I guess is a little concerning, but at the same time, he missed on the number. If that putt rolls in on the 36th hole, he could have easily backdoored a top 10, a top 20, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. So I have no problem going back to him. The guy that I want to ask you about is Morikawa, though, who's, we know at this point his irons, you mentioned these guys are just going to flag. Well, there's nobody I'd rather have maybe in the world than him, if that's the case. What do you do with him? Because it's going to be very difficult to play JT and Morikawa in the same lineup.
Yeah, it is 10-5. He does give you a little bit of those savings, but as a result, like, it's not that I don't like Morikawa. I mean, if you've seen his one tournament he's played here, he's pretty darn good at this golf course in a 1-year sample size. But I love Colin Morikawa and his iron game. I'm going to have exposure there. There's no issue there. You talk tee to green, you talk iron play. Over his last 24 rounds, 1.8 strokes gained total. Gotta love everything that's trending up for him there. It just seems like his short game has been really off here of late. That's kind of always been his bugaboo, chipping, figuring stuff out around the greens, and then putting. And putting is so high variant that, hopefully he can get away from this claw. I don't really know what's going on with his putter in certain times. He goes out, wins a PGA championship, goes to Florida, ends up winning a golf tournament with the claw, talks about how it's making him more comfortable. And if we can start seeing some of that short game start to flip here, I mean, he is the best iron player on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, literally on the planet. So I do have some. It's interesting because, you look at the top, it's pretty flat ownership. So you're kind of taking just best available. I mean, right now, looking at our premium projections in terms of ownership, which are free today, I believe, you've got everyone north of 10K, but nobody more than projected 17%. So you're getting small edges. You're really taking whoever you want. If you want to start up there, it's not like one guy is 5%, another's 30%. So with that in mind, I did mix and match a little. I have no problem with Reed. I have no problem with Berger. My priority is Justin Thomas. There's no doubt about it. And that's really where I want to start. The last question I have for you, are you doubling up in many lineups north of 10K?
It's really hard. Like it's really, really hard. And my PGA Pro plays, when I was crunching last night, this morning, as I'm starting to build lineups, it really became a question of how comfortable am I with a number of these plays below 7K? The answer is not super comfortable. It's not, it doesn't have the plethora of options that we would have at a major, or, even some of these other higher field events where you don't feel ridiculous going down below 7K. Like there's some really thin plays that we can try to mine out. Like if you feel good about a guy like Cabrera, who ended up putting up a T21 at the Byron in his last event, maybe, you can take some shots on Soon Kang, who's a Texas guy. Ended up making the cut at that same tournament at his home course, top 50 there. Like if you feel good about taking some shots on these dudes, like go at it. But I'm being a little bit more selective than I think I've been in the last couple of weeks. I feel like that's been a hole in my game, as I've tried to create value where there hasn't been any. And as a result, my lineups have suffered. So I'm really trying to focus on just being very heavy on Justin Thomas, finding guys in the low 8s that I'm really kind of going way overweight to compared to what I think other players might be, and kind of building from there.
Yeah, there's going to be some flexibility. I mean, Tim in chat just brings up a good point. There's a lot of guys that are going to make the cut relative to the size of the field. So you have some options. I do feel pretty comfortable in some regard going. You don't want to start spraying and praying to an extent where you just have no leverage on these, even though it's not going to be a ton of ownership. We'll get down there. We've got plenty of time to get to the deep dives. But let's go to the next range, leverage value. This is the 9Ks. A lot you've mentioned, balanced builds have been winning the day. So the first question I want to start with is how comfortable are you just saying, you know what, I'm going to omit the top 5 golfers and treat this with Will Z at the top and start with someone in the 9s?
Yeah, well, I mean, Will Z is basically the new Colin Morikawa. I like looking at him as such. And then Daniel Berger, even at 10K, if I'm going to put him in that bucket. And Abraham Answer, I think, how can you not love Abraham Answer on this golf course? I mean, it basically feels like this golf course. I mean, it's been around forever. It's, I believe, the longest golf course, tenured golf course on the PGA Tour. But Colonial just seems like it is absolutely made for him. Like they went through and decided to just create it for him. It's going to really kind of prove to be a ball striking. Like if it's going to be just strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds, Abraham Answer sitting there number 2, right behind, of all people, Jordan Spieth, but 2 per round. Abraham Answer, putting's been decent of late. Hasn't been a world beater. If he can just, be a little bit better around the greens, which I think he's going to hit a lot of greens when it's wet out here, and he's going to be able to play a little bit of target golf. I don't mind actually going like Will Z, Abraham Answer, and building out the rest of your lineup from there. I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, Answer is going to be popular, but there's certainly ways to work around that. He's popular for a reason. He makes a ton of sense. He's accurate off the tee. He's been playing really good golf. Everything sets up, and I think a lot of people are expecting, sooner rather than later, him to really break through. Will Z, incredible with the irons. Then it gets a little different. This is a range that I kind of like because it's different in the sense of skill sets. Tony Finau, Scotty Scheffler, Joaquin Niemann, Gary Woodland. Connors is sandwiched between them, but those 4 guys are more known for their off the tee game than I'd say their iron game. Does that deter you, or do you think, okay, you know what, maybe they can still be aggressive in a spot like this?
I could see it kind of going either way. I mean, Tony Finau has played well at a number of different types of golf courses, and length is never a bad thing. I think that's maybe the misconception that people have. It's like, oh, this is a bomber's course. Well, every course is in some iteration a bomber's course, because even if he's hitting, a 4-iron as opposed to hitting a 3-wood off of tees, that's a huge advantage. Length is never a bad thing. It's just a question of what else is working. And, over the last 24 rounds, his big bugaboo has just been putting. He hasn't putted at like an elite rate. And you need him to be putting at an elite rate in order to be winning any kind of a golf tournament on a shorter golf course. That's just kind of the way that it works out. So strokes gained total looks great. Tee to green, he's one of the top 5 guys in the field here over the course of the last 2 months. Have no problem going to Tony Finau. And then Scheffler, kind of the same deal a little bit. He's fine around the greens. Putting has also been a little bit of an issue. Corey Connors' putting hasn't been fantastic, but it's not like it's really suffered in his results whatsoever. Like I really like kind of this whole 9K range. It's going to be a little bit of an ownership game for me amongst them, but would it surprise me if any one of them were top 3, top 5 on Sunday? No.
Yeah, and it's tough. See, this is what's interesting about this week. It's very difficult to play the ownership game because of all the players that we've mentioned. They're all sitting in that 10 to 15-ish range. The only guy that Woodland looks like he may be a little lower owned relative to the fields, and you could create leverage there. Neiman, been incredibly consistent, has not missed a cut all year, is around the green game this week. Everything else is strong. He scores very well. I don't have a ton of priorities here, but I'm also very comfortable playing any of these guys. If I land on them, they're going to be my second man in a lot of lineups. I did mostly try to go get JT or someone from the 10K range. Last guy I want to ask you about is Sungjae Im. Well-rounded, solid player, 90-100. To me, everything just checks out, but it's pretty fair. I don't love the play. I don't hate the play.
Yeah, I think the field is pretty sharp as you're going through ownership. I mean, Gary Woodland seems to be the only guy, and he's down in the basement. And last week, it's strange because I felt like in the top end, it was pretty clear cut. And then, of course, Justin Thomas ruins my entire week by missing the cut on basically the number, misses by 1 there. Looking down there at Gary Woodland, he's had better form in some spots, top 5 at Wells Fargo. So the 5% there, not to change the question, but as you said, Sungjae Im, 17th at the PGA, he started off, really well round 1, just kind of hung out throughout the entire week. Phil made that golf course look a lot more straightforward than what it was. I feel like I didn't even watch anybody else play golf that entire week. So I've been spending my entire week trying to figure out how everybody else played, because just seemed like the entire coverage was based around him and Koepka. But as you said, Sungjae seems like he checks every single box. Like I would have no problem if he fell into some lineups here, but he's not somebody that I'm forcing in, that I'm like, I want to be overweight to him.
Yeah. I think that's a underutilized thing, especially on shows. Like, not every guy is a hot take per se. And Sungjae is just one of those guys. If I have some, I hope I come in around the field. I'd really like him to be a non-factor this week in terms of how I end up doing. So that's where I'm really at. It's just a weird blend. Ownership, it may deviate a little bit as we get closer to lock and whatnot, but for the most part, there's no mega chalk here. But there's no clear leverage at the same time. And that creates more of a just play who you want to play than anything else. But any final thoughts on the 9s before we start dipping into the mid ranges here?
No, I think so. If you're building one lineup, and you can basically play whoever you want out of this grouping. And if you want me to try to make a case, you can make a lot of cases for so many of these guys. It just depends on what you're looking for. And so maybe grouping together, it's not even a golf tournament where I'm grouping together course fit like last week, or where I'm trying to really put them together. This is an all around, not crapshoot, but I just think that there's a lot of guys that are going to play really, really well here. And you're kind of picking between straws there. So play your guys. Don't be afraid to make some stands on anybody in the 10K, in the 11K, 10K, 9K range. If you like a guy, and if you feel like you have a good case there, like even as far down, Gary Woodland is the cheapest one there, and I can make a case for him too. So make sure you just play your guys.
Yeah, there's plenty of other ways to leverage. I wouldn't go crazy with it at the same time. And again, we've only talked about the top end of the field. So let's get to it. Our favorite segment. We're going to make the cut, but chat. It's good to see even a week after the major. There's no hangover here. I know the NBA playoffs are on. I know baseball has not been canceled. There's a lot of sports, but you guys choosing to hang out with us, we really do appreciate it. If you can hit the like button and like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, because we're pumping out so much content, and it's short form as well. We've got a lot of videos. Eric's been putting them out. I have as well. Me and Josh Engelman, our best bets, like a 10-minute video, our favorite golfing bets of the week. Go check that out. Jason does a great job as well, putting out his sleepers and fades, all sorts of things here at Awesemo. So if you can hit that like button, we really do appreciate the love. But let's get to it. You know how this goes. Rapid fire, handful of players, and you can feel free to talk about the guys in that same range. We're going to go to the upper eights. We've got Justin Rose and his 11 strokes gained putting from last week. We've got Billy Ho, and we've got Charlie Hoffman.
So can we just start with Justin Rose? Because, yeah, he had the most ridiculous outlier that he possibly could last week. Ended up finishing top 10. I don't know. I'm going back to the well a little bit more than it looks like anybody else here at Awesemo.com is based on the PGA Pro plays. I really like getting to some Justin Rose here. It's a golf course that it seems like he's played well here in the past. And I just kind of want to be invested when he starts getting hot with a putter. We saw this at Torrey Pines 2 years ago, where when he starts rolling the rock, the ball striking will show up. He's not somebody that I'm concerned will find form hitting the ball here and there. But when he starts getting, like, not that a hot streak is like the right way of looking at it, but man, he plays some high variance where I wouldn't be shocked if he went out and shot 74. I also wouldn't be shocked if he finished top 10, which he's done 2 of his last 3 events, both at major championships. So I'm invested in Justin Rose this year, or for this tournament. And I'm trying to figure out if there's like something wrong with me in that regard. But what's your Justin Rose take?
Yeah, it's tough. I'll be honest. I'm not really there. And I just don't know if I can get over. What really got me was that since basically a full calendar year, going to June 2020, Justin Rose has 3 top 10s. They've all been at majors. Outside of that, his best finish was at the Zoizo. It was 17th, and that is a non-cut. And that is his only top 20. He has done absolutely nothing outside of the majors. And I don't know if he is now at the stage of his career where he really only cares about 4 or 5 tournaments a year. And this would not qualify for that. Now, the other side to that is he didn't have to play here. He's here. So, maybe he's certainly primed to show some form, but it's really been just the majors. And that gives me some hesitation. Charlie Hoffman and Billy Ho, I think they're fine. They're a little premium. It's a range that I'm not going to play Phil for obvious reasons. What about Ryan Palmer? A Texan that we know, Colonial and him have a love-hate relationship in some regard. Do you go to Ryan Palmer, who I think will attract some eyeballs?
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like it. And I was originally going to be lower. This is his home course. This is literally where he plays out of. And that has to be factored in for something where he's seen a number of different conditions, windy, not windy, regardless of the greens, regardless of the conditions. If it's going to be different playing it wet as opposed to playing dry last time that it was out here, I don't mind taking a guy where this is his golf course. I'm pretty sure that that's true. Don't correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I do like getting to some Ryan Palmer just simply because of that, being a Texan, being a guy that I do think I want to be overweight to the field, mainly because I didn't expect his ownership to be this low.
Yeah, I think that's normally, it's all a product of kind of what's going on. Ryan Palmer is a guy that if things broke a little differently, we could have been talking about chalk, and that's really not the case right now. So interesting dynamic with him. And I'm not really looking, the way my builds were kind of a dead zone all in all. So I'm okay with that. But as we move down, this is where we've got some serious chalk to talk about, particularly with Brian Harman. We are projecting that he could be amongst, if not the actual highest owned player on this slate. You've got Matt Wallace there. You've got Cameron Tringali, who had, one of the crazier things that we've ever seen. He shot like 10 over in 2 holes. Other than that, he was fine last week. So first question has to be, what do you do with Ryan Palmer? No one cares about that. What do you do with Brian Harman?
Oh, I care about Ryan Palmer now that I'm going to be overweight.
He doesn't get 2 segments.
Okay. So if I have to play one guy out like in this range, I'm going to eat the chalk with Brian Harman. Brian Harman, 7 straight cuts here, tied 31st, being the worst of them. Loves this place. Like, he just plays well here. Another guy where Abraham Answer, throw him in the bucket. Immaculate short game. One of the best short games in the world. This is a place where you want to be investing in him. And I feel pretty confident, even if I was just making one lineup this week. I do want to cater to people who also aren't making a bunch of lineups all the time. But if you're making one lineup, I would probably be playing Brian Harman and try to deviate elsewhere. There's just such a secure floor, it feels like, for him in this spot. and on this golf course that I just have to love it. And I think in large field tournaments, I think he's going to be one of the chalkier guys that I'm fine still being at or above the field on. I would have no problem with it. Then you get down to Cameron Tringali, which I think I just have to be lighter on. And it's not just that he had that bad hole. I mean, he didn't play very well at the Wells Fargo. He played well at the Valspar. Zurich was off. It seems like he just kind of is an ebb and flow guy. He had that great first round and, second round just kind of like lost it. Can he keep it together for 4 rounds of a golf tournament the way that he did at the Valspar? Played pretty darn well at the Valero until the weekend. I don't know. It's not a guy that I'm ever enthusiastic to be playing, but looks like all the strokes gained, it looks like strokes gained total. There's no problem going there. I just can't play everybody. And so I'm going to be off of him.
So I haven't played a lot of Tringali. He's had a fantastic year. The one thing I'll point to in his favor, Wells Fargo and Kiawah Island are not even remotely similar to this. Valspar, Honda, probably closer in terms of stylistic of the course. And he seems to be more comfortable at those places. So I don't mind that. Brian Harman, he makes a lot of sense. I think he's over-owned, but certainly chalk has been hitting at an obscene rate in golf.
It's been pretty gross, hasn't it? Like,
yeah, it's been terrible.
Let's be honest about it. For whatever reason, I think there's a lot of people who think that they are playing golf DFS very, very well lately. And I'm just hoping that it starts to turn around a little bit. It seems like I'm basically I haven't gotten murdered the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, I mean, Tringali was somebody that I was on earlier. And, now it just seems like his ownership is trending up again. And now I want to be down again. And it's this constant ebb and flow of trying to figure out what the field's going to be doing. And I think they're going to gravitate to Cameron Tringali more than we think they are.
I mean, listen, things even out, and chalk, it has its purpose, but in a high variance sport, there will be carnage more often than not long term. Some of these guys, like Corey Connors, has proven, and we'll see long term, but he has proven that he's just really, really good. So that's a different situation. And I've always tried to give myself that out, that some of these guys that I wasn't buying on the way up, there's always the out that they're just world-class players. But for every one of those, sorry, poor Norman Jong. I hope he doesn't watch the show because I hate to single him out, but for every one of those, he didn't make it right now. Maybe he'll come back.
We can throw Matt Wolf in there.
Matt Wolf is struggling.
Let's throw somebody in. Let's throw somebody else in the fire. Might as well be somebody that I actually might run into in California.
Yeah,
that would
Matt
actually
Wolf.
Get in fisticuffs with me.
The Wolf man. And look where he was. He was like 9K in majors and he had a chance to win a couple already. Mm-hmm. And now not so much, but anyway, that is a high octane range. A lot of ownership will be there. There's no doubt. We go to the upper sevens. We've got Griot. We've got Sneds. We've got Chris Kirk. A lot of eyeballs will be on this range as well. Keith Mitchell is there. Matt Jones is there. What say you for the upper sevens?
Yeah, Griot. Let's just party with Griot this week. I'm right there again. The putter's going to flip as well. You think it is. I say that just about every single week. I feel like you and I are a broken record with this guy, but I want to invest in guys on a birdie fest that are going to be striping it, and he's going to be striping it. So sign me up.
Yeah. So here we go, chat. It's been we're coasting along here. It's been a good show. Here we go. We're going to get a little spicy. First one, I believe, of the year for me. I have 100% Griot this week. I locked them. Lock, button, play. Partly was due because he's going to be very popular, and I understand that, but it checks out across the board. I'm pushing my chips into the middle with Mr. Griot this week. He has gained strokes putting in 3 of 4. Mm-hmm. That is a huge sign. He has gained 7 or more strokes on the approach in 3 of 4. He has gained tee to green in 4 of 4. He has made 4 of 5 cuts. He came in second at RBC Heritage, which is the clear comp course. What is there to say besides it's golf and anything can happen? And that's something you always have to incur. Every single thing checks out for him. Around the green should be mitigated. If it is target golf, this guy is as good of an iron player as any of the guys we mentioned up top. And with this putter lately, it hasn't been a leak. So I locked him. I am playing with 5-man roster spots this week.
I'm so inspired. I don't even know how we can go on the rest of the show. Like, what do we do? What do we do? I don't have anything to back that. Oh, I do have, I'll get to my hot take, but 100% Griot. Okay. I have so much respect for you here at this moment. I mean, I right now had 28% maybe I'll up that a little bit. I'm happy to do such things. He's coming a little bit lower. I mean, I think he was my second highest owned golfer for my crunches this morning, third. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I absolutely love him. Checks out across the board. RBC Heritage, probably one of the better course comps, especially if it's going to be wet, especially if it's going to be set up this way. Like, you know, you get a little windy, you get these shorter spots where it just becomes iron play. That's why Answer is meaningful. That's why, you know, Colin Morikawa is going to be a guy I want to get to, who played fantastic for 3 rounds until that final round and fell off. I mean, there is a direct, I think, correlation between these two. Colin Morikawa lost in a playoff here, ends up going to RBC this year, plays terrible in the final round alongside Sink. Yeah, let's do the Griot dance. I'm here for it.
Yeah, everything, like I said, checks out. And listen, has he been missing fairways a little bit? But again, Kiawah Island and Quail Hollow are not comparable off the tee. He's much more comfortable at Valspar, at RBC Heritage, at OHL, at these type of courses. This is that. It doesn't mean, I mean, listen, it's golf. He's got 36 holes. If he gets through, my floor is pretty secure, but I think he's going to be just fine this week. Other than him, though, what do you make of like a Sneds, who's clearly more volatile, but can get crazy hot with the putter?
Yeah, so Sneds, another guy that, you know, I would have no problem getting to. I mean, his form has just improved so much of late. I think we were trashing him until he ends up going out to Valero, putting up a T6, and I believe he was optimal that week. We had talked about him. I was like, can we play him? He was down in the basement salary wise for that tournament, and was kind of like considering what I was going to do with him, because he's a much better player than what he had shown of late. And now you're coming off of back-to-back top 20s, 3 tournaments in the top 20 in his last 4. It's been spread out a ways, but like, yeah, this is the kind of spot where you would want to be playing a Brandt Snedeker. Maybe I do have to up a little bit more exposure there. I mean, I was pretty low on him there before, but if he's gonna go out and win a spot, I mean, he's playing much better here over the course of the last month. So I'm happy to take some shots.
Yeah, I don't mind it. You know, listen, Sneds has to survive off the tee. Big win equity relative to his range, most likely, because he's been there, he's done that. He can really get crazy hot. But you know, I'm not in love with it. I also, again, my lineups look different because I locked the player this week, so that's a little different type of build.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So working down, we've got some guys here in the mid range. I do want to quickly ask you about like Sergio in particular. He's someone that I think a lot of people want to know about. Brandon Grace is there, really 7,500 range before we get to the lower sevens.
Yeah. So Sergio is doing typical Sergio things, strokes gained tee to green. But that's not going to be something that we need to, I don't know. He's just been so bad around the greens as well over the course of the last month and a half. It's hard for me to really want to be going there. He had the one really hot round, and I believe he still ended up missing the cut last time out. It's just, you know what you're getting into, 4 straight missed cuts, but top 10 at the Players, shorter golf course, iron play as well. But God, I can't do it. I'm not a Sergio guy. I never really have been. Probably going to be not there again this week.
I have some. I think it's okay, but Brandon Grace is there, Uline is there, and then the guys that I kind of want to get to a little more in depth, we've got HV3 is there, Joel Damon, Harry Higgs, Doc Redmond types, lower sevens. I mean, did anyone catch your eye, or is there, you know, more of a spray and pray element to how you're constructing?
A little bit spray and pray, but there's one guy that kind of surprised you didn't even bring up, who's underneath 2% there. That's 100 at the exact same number as Sergio Garcia. That is one Peter Uline, who I think maybe it's just looking at that number and just thinking that the ownership is just wrong for the most part. For a guy that has played pretty well for the most part, most of it being on the Corn Ferry Tour. So his stats look terrible on the PGA Tour for strokes gained data, but on the Corn Ferry Tour has been pretty effective. And I feel like at 7,500, maybe this is the kind of spot where he could pop. And at 7,500, I'm happy to, you know, triple, quadruple the field there. When you win on the Corn Ferry Tour, I think that there's more correlation than most people think there is. You have to be playing very good golf. All of those golf tournaments also go crazy low. And if I think this is going to be a birdie shootout, I'm happy to go to Peter Uline at like 1%.
Yeah, low ownership on him. I do think there is an element of competing and getting in the mix, even at a you know, kind of a pay down event, you know, a class drop event. I'd rather have that than a guy who's just getting beat up on the tour week after week. We saw Chris Kirk go down there and win, and I think that was a catalyst for a lot of the positive things in his year. So I don't mind that. It's tough in this range again, because there's just a lot of flyers that you can look to, and you don't want to play everyone. Taylor Gooch is another guy, can get crazy hot with the irons at 73. And I have a feeling, I mean, knowing your lineup construction as well with JT, that you're going to need some guys in this range.
Yeah. So Harry Higgs is another guy that played really well last week. There's not a ton of comp there between these courses, but I think Harry Higgs, even getting to somebody like him at just he's actually kind of a little bit more owned than I expected him to. Hearing a lot of Doug Gim talk, which makes me want to just kind of hit eject on that for the most part. Like, it seems like he's just so bad with the putter that I don't know if I can talk myself into going that direction here at this point in time. Went to Texas. That's about all I can really say for him here. Going to be a good player long-term. We've talked about him a bunch on this show, but I think I got to be lighter, even because he's just getting some kind of ownership. The guy I want to ask you about, and I just think that this is probably the right time to be going way more overweight than I am currently at this point in time. What are you doing with Kevin Kisner? Because I feel like this would be the golf course where we could see him start to emerge again.
Well, so Kevin Kisner, site of one of my best PGA DFS weeks ever, was at this course in 2017 when he won comfortably. It is a good course for him. It's just what you're weighing is he even remotely the same player? There's nothing in his results that would say yes. The putter's been okay, but that is not the formula. Kevin Kisner, much like Ricky Fowler back in the day, doesn't rely on an okay putter. It needs to be an elite putter and a great, iron player. I think he'd come out of nowhere. What I've been doing with Kisner is betting him, and it's obviously been going terrible, but at least there it's more binary. I don't think if he was in the sixes, I would probably go there blindly. Give me CT Pan, give me Taylor Gooch, give me Russell Knox, certainly HV3 and Dahmen. Too many guys, even Troy Merritt at flat 7. If you're looking for a complete flyer, I would rather go to him than take a blind stab with Kisner.
Yeah, I really don't actually mind that call much at all. I was toying with some Camilo Villegas as well. Somebody in the chat said, I wish that Peter Uihlein was 6,900. I really don't, because he's going to be 1 or 2%, and I don't have to do much to go over the field there. And if he was 6,900, he'd be double digit owned. And I think that that's kind of the mentality of, like, if you're going to go more balanced, or if you're going to spray a little bit in the 7K range, there's a number of guys who can pop, and it doesn't take much to get over the field there in those directions. You can kind of be double there. And then underneath 7K, you can be lighter than what some other people might not be, because they're trying to jam in a ton more Jordan Spieth or somebody else.
Makes a ton of sense. Our friend of the show, Freudian Slip, super chatted us yesterday. We appreciate that. Super chatted us today. How important is recent form versus course history? That, my friend, is an age-old debate. To me, course history is actually useless to an extent. It's more about course fit. I think people are discovering that. Anyone can go out there and win randomly, but if a guy's skill set matches up with what the course demands, even if he hasn't played well at the course, stick with it, because a sample size of 1 or 2 or 3 years is not going to tell you much. And recent form is the same way. Playing well last week is great, but if last week the course demanded crazy driving and, wild, speedy greens, and then this week is something completely different, that's a different skill set. So I think that's how I would approach that. What about you?
I think that's the right way of doing it. I think about it all the time, just from a real golf perspective, that there's golf courses that I just love to go to constantly because it fits what I do well.
Exactly.
And that could be something where you could look at course history and somebody talks about being comfortable. You don't have to sit over certain shots and freak out. Like for me, golf courses where there's a lot of trouble to the right, I don't play nearly as well as golf courses with a bunch of trouble to the left. I pretty much never hit the ball left. And so that is something small to factor in about like the way a golf course can be set up for you. And you can just feel comfortable there. But as you said, when you're looking at 2 or 4 rounds, like Colin Morikawa has played well at golf courses like this, like at the RBC, like this one, obviously last year played well here. This is the kind of fit for him. And that's more important than just saying, oh, well, he's only played here 1 year and that was an outlier or something like that. No, he is fit for this golf course.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think on the recent form, kind of think of it with other sports. I mean, it's great if you've got a guy in the NBA or the NFL, he's playing amazing, but then if the next week they're playing a defense that directly impacts maybe what he's doing, the recent form of him is not going to be that useful. And I know golf courses, it's a little different, but it's the same concept. Not every course is the same. So different skill sets for different weeks. And that's how I try to approach it. Just like, I don't lock people often. It just happens to happen. And
it just happens to be that I'm going to do it this week. There you go.
And you know what?
Psychopath.
I like that, because if Griot doesn't play well this week, I shouldn't win. I deserve to lose.
I guarantee you won't win if Griot does not play well.
No, but that's how it should be. There's nothing worse in DFS than when you are losing, but it's not aligned to your strongest takes. You're like, man, this is like some random guy that I didn't really have a strong take on is determining my fate. There's nothing better when I want, if Griot wins this week, I'm going to do very well. If he gets crushed, I'm going to get crushed. That's how I want it. That's exactly how I tried to correlate. So it'll be pretty binary for me in that regard. But let's go down to the lower ranges here with Luke List, Scott Piercy, and Richie Werenski. We're in the upper sixes. Are these guys that you're looking for some value on?
Oh God. All I'm doing in my brain right now is deciding whether I want to lock button Justin Thomas now just to match you. That's all I can think about in my brain. And you've kind of derailed me, because it's like, maybe that's the kind of process I need to be having here at this point in time with my, 230 lineups that I'm making. Just lock button one guy. And if he doesn't play well, like JT didn't play last, it's not like I was going to do well last week anyway with 40% JT. But who was the guy that you asked me? Richie Werenski, I believe, was the one name that I heard.
Scott Piercy, Luke List is a guy.
He is a guy. Luke List is a guy.
That's all I
Luke
got.
List is a bomber. But again, we talk about it. Let me just pull it up, because he was actually somebody that was jumping big time in my model, and I was kind of confused why he was, because it just seems like this wouldn't be the kind of golf course to be looking at for him. Loses a lot of strokes putting, short game as of late. In his last 24 rounds, 114th, 117th on tour in those statistics. Wait, that was Doug Gim. It's shocking that they would sound the same. 100th and 108th for Luke List. Definitely not a guy that would be popping in that kind of a way, but kind of a ball striker still. Gaining strokes tee to green. One of the better ball strikers, top 20 now on tour in the last 24 rounds. I think you could have a little bit on this golf course. He tends to be a guy who can go low. Don't really care which golf course that would be at.
So I've got some info for you with Luke List. This is a guy that I play pretty often. And one of the things that I've picked up, and it's super surprising when you really think about it, but it's true. Luke List, it's a counterintuitive type of player. He actually benefits from being forced in some regard to club down. He's very aggressive off the tee, and it is shown on shorter courses, he's actually much better, because you mentioned this, everybody thinks like when you have good distance, it's just correlated to your driver. It's not. He can hit an iron plenty far off these tees. He avoids the trouble and he sets himself up. So I think that Luke List in particular is more suited for technical tracks, even though you would think that he can use his driving abilities at much longer courses. So I like him this week, actually.
I love that call. And there's certain spots. It just depends on how the hole sets up where, if he's going to be forced into hitting a 2-iron, that's probably a good thing for Luke List, who is notorious for being one of the bigger sprayers on tour. Yeah,
no doubt about it. But let's work to the actual lower ranges here. How low are you willing to go? And is there a couple guys in the sixes that you are saying, you know what, these are going to be extensions of my JT lineups?
Denny McCarthy, I think 6,300 is a guy
the putting wizard. Sure.
Okay, why not? 6,300. I'm trying to target upside.
He's a wizard with the putter.
Yeah, I know he is. So Brandon Haggie's had some decent results of late. So 6,300, I could see going there. I don't really want to go anywhere. Vincent Whaley was somebody that popped up big time in like the birdie model. And I was like, I'm just going to disregard this as an outlier. And I can't possibly get myself to do that. What's the lowest you're willing to go? I think 6,300, and I'm probably going to call it quits there.
So Vincent Whaley makes sense. I totally understand
that. I don't want to play him.
I don't have a ton. I think if you're playing aggressively in cash, you can go there because you're literally banking on a made cut in a 120 man field where 65 are getting through. And if he does make the cut, he's not going to kill you. Now in tournaments, him coming in 43rd doesn't actually help you. You're going to need mega carnage for that to be pertinent. So I get it, but I do think for like obvious pay down options, that's always a little risky. I'm going to bring up my man, Anaban Lahiri, as an extreme punt. He is someone who's been playing terrible golf, but it's been mostly with the putter. Tee to green is fine. I think these are the type of courses that long-term, he's had some success here. And I just think Lahiri is the type of guy, he can get crazy hot. He makes a lot of birdies, can outscore his placement. You only need 5%. You'll have plenty of leverage. You mentioned the putters. You could target those top end putters. Mac Hughes is down here as well. It's tough though.
Chase Seifert might be the last other dude under 1%. So Chase Seifert tends to be somebody that I always get like 3-4% of in the course of a week. If you want a guy who's like going to be a flyer, somebody that can get pretty hot in terms of the ball striking, 25th on tour over the course of the last 24 rounds and strokes gained total. So I don't mind getting to that. Is actually a pretty flat putter comparatively, basically a zero factor there. Kind of tends to be worse here and there around the greens, but if it's going to be wet and people are able to just kind of place their ball in the fairways and rock out, I would have a little bit of Chase Seifert interest.
I think, listen, down here, you can play a lot of different players, but you just want to make sure that unless you have a real line on one of these guys, that you're being careful. A couple percent is going to do it. You don't need to get crazy. And I think more likely than not, I don't see a ton that I'm willing to really anchor lineups to. I've got a lot of shares of several different players down here, or I should say that differently. I have small shares of a lot of different players down here. Gotcha. The one other guy I wanted to ask you about is Theegala.
Theegala, to correct
Theegala,
you.
Sure.
Because I've actually played golf with him. So there's that. Went to Pepperdine, won the national championship. So I live next door to a golf course called Lakeside Country Club, which is next to the Bob Hope Estate here in Toluca Lake, California. I live in an apartment. Actually, the Motel 6 was what everybody would like to let it be known where I live. But right next to Lakeside, he ended up shooting like, I believe, 18 under. He did something silly where he won that thing by double digits at Lakeside, and he just completely destroyed everybody in the field. It was unfun to be a part of that, but played a U.S. Amateur qualifier with him out at Crystal Air Country Club in the middle of California. And afterwards, I was like, I've just played with the best golfer that I've ever played with in my life. And, I played alongside Cantlay. I've played alongside some other guys, but Theegala hits this little sniping cut, like this low ping driver cut. That's just so impressive. So he's a guy that I tend to get to just because I played with the guy, and I would love to win a DraftKings tournament because I played golf alongside a dude and, chatted with him for 36 holes in 105-degree weather in the middle of nowhere. But Theegala, if you want to talk about pedigree, which I like to talk about a lot, he's a guy that could be under-owned, and you're going to want to, we only have 18 rounds of data basically on him for the entire season. Is that correct if I'm looking at this?
Yeah.
He hasn't been.
Yeah. He's been on the Corn Ferry Tour playing a little, not much to go off of. You're blindly backing him if you play him.
You're not blind. So you're at least backing a dude who, just like Matt Wolff or somebody else like that, I would put him in the same. Oh, maybe he's better than Matt Wolff at this point in time. Probably. It would be hard not to be, but poor Matt Wolff. I really do like Theegala in this range. Sorry that I glossed over him per se, because a guy that I love just as a talking point for just about anything, actually garnering a little bit of ownership over on DraftKings, even seeing a 1 in front of his number to not just be, underneath 1%. That's kind of interesting. And, he's going to be a dude that at some point in time, that you're going to be rostering him. So getting him under 7K definitely has the pedigree.
Yeah. Listen, that's the conversation we talked about early in the show. In a year, we could be talking about Theegala legitimately being 10K in real events. He could be Will Z. He could also not be on the tour. I think we have no idea. There's a lot of guys with pedigree. If you want to buy in, buying in now is the way to do it. If not, you can wait and see. You might be too late though. Give and take on those. All right. We got a couple minutes left here. Bets of the week. What say you in the betting market? You got some winners for us?
I've got more guys. We missed, I believe, one of the guys that, well, actually maybe talking about two of the guys that I have interest in. So I have a three-man betting card this week. We're trying to hit a long shot. We're going to try to hit a long shot this week. I'm going to do some top 5 each ways on all of these, but I've got 3 guys. Matt Wallace, plus 7,000. We didn't really talk about him, just better than that number. Peter Uihlein, I talked about him already, plus 14,000 with the top 5 each way. And Patton Kizzire, who his ball striking numbers, 11.5 strokes gained over the course of his last 24 rounds of golf. I really kind of like the way that he's trending up. He was popping at the top of my ball striking model. I'm willing to take some shots there again, because that's not generally what I know of him to be. So I like taking some shots at that big of a number. 7,400 over on DK. Happy to be playing him there too.
Listen, wide open tournament if you survive the top, as are a lot of events on the PGA Tour, so I don't mind doing that. I've got some outrights. My card's a little messed up this week just because I like Griot so much, and I didn't particularly want to bet him on top of everything. I have some exposure in the betting market. One of my favorite things, though, I'm going to go to the matchup realm, and I hate to try to short your guy. I do think, though, if you get matchups against Justin Rose, the floor on him is miscuts. I think he's very live to potentially miscut if he does not have it. You know, he's shown I'm not going to say when he wants to, but when he can putt, and certainly in majors, he's a force. And if that's the case, you're going to be in for a tough struggle if you go against him in head-to-head. But I do think, you know, if you get Neiman or Sergio or some of these guys, you could get a pretty good price depending on who it is. And Rose just might not be ready to play once again. And if you get that, it could be a good spot in the head-to-head market. So I did short Justin Rose, particularly with Neiman. That was a matchup that I was able to get, and I'm comfortable with it. So on that note, I can't wait. Oh, sorry. Do you want to?
I got my hot take. You didn't want my hot take?
That's where we're going, Chad. Oh. That's where we're going.
I have the Dante's Inferno, grandma pushing the boat out
Dante's
in the lake.
Peak, so you're off to a bad start.
Dante's Peak, whatever.
Dante's Inferno is.
Shut up. I don't care.
That's what's Dante's? Isn't that the?
You're fine.
The book.
Dante's Inferno. I don't even know. I just said it, and I meant Dante's Peak. What else am I going to be
That's what we're going to send you with that comment. All right, speak. You've been teasing this for the whole show.
I have.
I can't wait to hear this. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
I believe, and I'm trying to find. I almost emailed Schmada to see if they would post a number for such a thing, but I think somebody shoots 59 this week. I think somebody goes out on the PGA Tour, lift, clean, and place on a target golf course. A lot of irons. Yeah, not enough par 5s, people might say, but it is a par 70. And so that's really what matters more is the par 70. You have to shoot 11 under. I think with the quality of this field, which I think it's maybe a higher quality than we've had in previous iterations of the Colonial, I think somebody shoots 59, at the worst 61 this week.
I tell you what, I don't have, unfortunately, on the wall like the standings or whatnot, but I give you credit. Your hot takes are very interesting. Like, that is a great hot take. I wish I thought of that. I love that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just think that's an awesome one. It goes strictly with your narrative. Lift, clean, and place certainly ups the percentage of a nuclear round like that. Maybe we'll combine our hot takes, and I'll just up it and say Griot shoots 59.
The first 59 ever shot, I believe, was at the Houston Open with lift, clean, and place. So I just want to put that into like, if you want to talk about going scuba diving, when you get a perfect golf ball on every single shot from the fairway, it's a big, big difference.
I love it. I really do. That is a great one. I'm excited to see it. I mean, obviously, what can I say? I think we know what my hot take is. I think that Griot's going to win. I really do. Now it's massive odds. Is he going to win realistically? Probably not. But I think he's going to play fantastic. And if he does what he's been doing, this is the first time in a long time, as someone who backs him often, that I'm not saying if he just flips the putter, he could be in contention. I don't need him to flip the putter. He needs to keep doing what he is doing. He has been fantastic lately in a small range with that putter. Everything else comes naturally to him. So on that note, we are locked and loaded for the Colonial, the Charles Schwab. This thing changes. It used to be the Dean and DeLuca. I liked it back then.
The tournament that Annika played in. That's what I was thinking.
There you go. Another little known fact from the man himself. But on that note, chat, we got a lot of people in here right to the end, and we appreciate that. Hit the like button on your way out. It is time for us to go watch some NBA ball. Let's go Jazz tonight. you really don't have to worry. They're going to be just fine. The Knicks, on the other hand, not so much. But on that note, we're going to bounce on out. Thanks to Jordan Klein behind the glass, and chat, thanks to you. Follow us on Twitter. Handles are right there. And get inside the ropes at Awesemo.com. We'd love to have you. Weekly passes starting under $10 for PGA. Good luck this week. We'll talk to you guys next Wednesday. Seriously, the Knicks, man, what is going on?
I did not pull